what start were you usually doing?
I'm nothing. Full drive.
Okay, full drive.
That's
Sweet,
it.
sweet.
I haven't
So,
done anything.
how flexible you are? Like, can you do this comfortably? Okay, can you? Okay. And what if you put your hands down? This position, this position. Do you feel comfortable and stable?
Yeah.
So, do you feel like
tight.
you? Do you feel like you're a flexible person? Okay, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I like to do is to practice on land,
Yeah.
so that when you get on the ladder or on the dock, you're gonna be way more comfortable jumping on the board, because ideally you have ingrained this movement in your brain, so that's sorted, and you pretty much can do it without thinking about it. That's the goal. So that you do it, and then you just have to figure out maybe the glide and the next steps. So you have less things to think about when you get in the water. And you can start without the board,
Yeah.
and then you add the board later, just so that's just easier. But you just wanna place your hands with about 1.5 shoulder width, and you just wanna jump. Yeah. My back foot, you are regular, so I'm gonna do it the other way around. My back foot lands slightly earlier. Now you can even do it like this, but this requires a bit more flexibility.
On the inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So feel free to fit your front knee in between your arms and your right knee outside. Yeah. All right, and you kind of gotta do it 100 times. Okay, ideally. So again, back foot, front foot, and you stay there, stable. Yeah. And can you see how gently I land on the little couch? Because I have a lot of weight on my arms. You can see my chest is on my arm, right? Exactly. So the way I apply pressure on the couch, which later is gonna be the board, and later is gonna be the board on the water, is very gradual, and that's the key for a sharp dock start. Applying pressure on the board, so weight on the foil, very gradually. Yeah, usually it really helps, even just right before the session, to stretch a bit your hip flexors, to push those knees towards the outside, and sometimes is really your ankle, your calf that is quite tight, and then again, of course, prevents you from pushing your knee further forward than your toes.
So you do it as if you kind of move really well.
Exactly. Hey yo, sorry for the interruption. If this sounds exciting and you're looking for something similar, well, I just would like you to know that I'm gonna be holding a 4-day clinic in Rome at the beginning of June. If you wanna know the details, simply send me a DM on Instagram or an email. Both are below in the description. See you later. Yeah, ideally you wanna land your feet on the same line where your hands are, yeah. This is a little bit harder than it's actually gonna be.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna be this high.
Yeah.
Try from the other side?
Yeah, we might try on the other side.
Yeah.
However, if you get used to a higher jump, a higher step,
And it gets easier.
then it gets easier, yeah.
I can't get that inside.
If you don't feel comfortable jumping this way on the couch, then we can simply switch to the drop start, which is I wouldn't say harder or anything. It's just more scary. Okay.
Right.
Now I'm using a gong board not because it's better than my ketos, but just because my keto is assembled, and I want to make sure that he uses the board that he's actually gonna use on a day-to-day basis, because it changes a lot, even though it doesn't seem like. Ideally, it's not gonna be this high when you're gonna jump on the board. But again, if we get used to something higher, then it gets easier and less scary when you actually have to jump on the thing on the water. So you are regular, so you're gonna start with your right foot in front and your back foot at the back.
Yeah.
Now what you wanna do you wanna apply pretty much all your weight on your front foot, okay? I pretty much don't have any weight on my back foot. This is because if you do that, it's gonna be easier to not jump and just let yourself fall on the board. Because if you are like this, then you're gonna kind of have to jump. But if instead you just lean forward, my chest is on my front foot, you look pretty much where your front foot should land, and then you just let yourself fall, and you do a rotation in the meantime. So I also imagine that I'm holding my boards on my hands. That's pretty much it. And as you could see, you have to try and land as softly as possible. Imagine being like a cat. You know, if you throw a cat, poor cat, but it's gonna land like very softly. It's gonna really absorb the impact. And that's pretty much what you have to do as well.
So we'll try it.
Go.
So we've got the back of the board and then rotate.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna get into that. But normally you have your left hand at the tail and your front hand on the edge, on the side. Something like this. And then, yeah, it's gonna be, in terms of timing, you're gonna really throw the board and half a second later you're gonna jump. So it's gonna be something like. That's great, yeah. And ideally, you stay there.
Yeah.
Again, if we get used to this on land, it's gonna be easier once we get in the water.
Okay.
Not bad, yeah. Keep in mind that you have an 80 centimeter board, and ideally you don't want to miss it. Now we're gonna use my set. We're gonna get into that, but try and get used to landing in the stance that you're actually gonna have once you land on the board. Okay, so ideally, really this one, shoulder width apart. Maybe a little bit more, but not too much, because yes, you are stable, but you're not really in a comfortable position to even glide, let alone pump. So yeah, you can keep practicing that, and then we can see if we can put like a mattress or something so that we can use your board. Exactly. Quite simple, isn't it? Now I want you to. Of course, we're not gonna throw the board, but I want you to feel how it feels to have the boards in your hand while you do that. Yeah. Now it's not ideal because we don't have an overhang. Ideally, the tail, the stab, and the fuselage is like underneath an overhang.
Yeah.
You can exactly keep the board lower. Exactly. Now you are doing great with your hands because you don't want to squeeze the board because that makes you tense.
Yeah.
And anyways, when you're gonna drop the board in the water, you're not really gonna throw it. It's really gonna be a slight push, whoop, whoop, and you let the board glide. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna practice that in the water. But one thing that I want you to feel now is to lean forward, still keep the majority of your weight on your front leg there, and also keep the board lower, 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 somewhere here with this angle.
Going this way slightly or straight?
I like to go slightly that side. So yeah, just get comfortable and then don't jump, of course, but get comfortable and try to visualize this position visually and also mentally. Like try and feel really how it feels to stay in that position with the board sitting on your palms. I don't want to overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
So you could just think about landing both feet at the same time. But in actual fact, the front foot should land a split second earlier.
Okay.
So you are regular, lean forward, I hold the board, I throw the board. Could you feel that? Like just a tiny little bit. What you don't really want is your back foot to land first. Because then you're gonna have to pitch it up, you're gonna stall it, and you're not gonna get that nice glide that you actually get when you reverse drop start, because you use the energy, you use the momentum, you use the rotation, you use your weight to just glide, okay? So I'm gonna do it first to see how it feels, because maybe it's a bit too slippery, I'm afraid. It is slippery, which is fine because it's exactly what you want. Because if you have a slippery surface between the board and the mattress, you're maybe also gonna slide a little bit after you land, which is exactly what you want. Because if you slide, if you glide on this surface after you land, you're gonna feel how it feels to transfer your weight into forward momentum. Yeah, and after you land, just stay there and try and process the information, like what happened? Where are my feet? Am I balanced? Did I land softly? So your regular is gonna look something like, okay, we get some glide. Okay, yeah, exactly. A bit a wider stance. The landing was good. It was a bit too harsh. You could hear it, right?
Yeah.
But it's, for being the first one, is great. The feet placement is awesome. Just stay low and expect the board to glide. Okay, in the water, the board is going to glide. The foil is going to glide. Here it might glide. Okay, so yeah, if you really have a bit more weight in front and you land your front foot slightly earlier, you're probably gonna get that glide that I had as well. Better? Yeah. Yeah, the feet placement was perfect. You can also see the imprints on the board.
Yeah.
Now it's just really about getting softer. One thing that could help you landing softer is bending your knees a little bit more on the dock. Yeah. So that's because if you are all stiff, then you're most probably gonna land stiff on the water as well. But if you're very soft and relaxed on the dock already, and you're even lower, so you kind of have to cover less air distance before having a contact with the board, it's gonna be easier to land softly. Yeah, not bad. Okay, yeah. Your weight was slightly on the left side of the board, but I really liked the landing, and you also could feel a little bit of a forward push. Yeah, not bad. I feel like you are already looking where your front foot should land, and that's where you want to look, because again, ideally you want to land your front foot ever so slightly before the back one. But anyways, if you focus on landing the front foot, usually the back foot follows.
So does my right front foot need to be across more? Let's see, I kind of...
The footprints.
Yeah.
It's actually fine, because you ideally want to have a little bit of offset. You see, like, especially when you don't have much room, you gotta be comfortable even if you're quite close to the edge of the board. Like you see that this is the stance that I would have to pump, to dockstart and pump with this board. Shoulder width apart, but slightly offset. This offset allows me to be more stable, not only when I land, not only when I turn, but also when I pump. And it also helps rotate your shoulders towards the front, which is what you want to do, because when you're going to pump, you want to relieve your weight and project it forward. And if you are already looking forward and you have your shoulders rotated towards the front, then it's just easier to relieve your weight and shift it in front. Because if you are like this, you're kind of stuck, right? Make sure when you land that you land. Of course, to absorb the impact, you're probably going to land the ball of your feet first. But then after that, when you are in position, then you should be nice and stable, and your weight should be evenly spread in both legs, both feet, and in the entire part of your foot. Yeah, I could see that you still had your weight quite towards the back when you started, and that's probably what's preventing you from landing softer. Because again, if you have your weight all in front, then you really just have to let yourself fall forward, and your feet are gonna catch you on the board. the cool thing about the mattress here is that you can pretty much predict whether you would glide or whether you would probably just roll on one side. Like if you land and the board is kind of like this, then most probably you're not gonna glide straight. But if when you land, like you can also see it from the air in the cushion here. If you land and the air is evenly spread from left and right and front and back, most probably that's a glide. That's a nice glide, okay? It's a pretty nice simulator. Okay, yeah, not bad. It wasn't really gentle, but you got the point. You got a glide. Now it's nice that you get the feet placement, but when you are going to be in the water, then you need to expect the board to glide. Otherwise, what's going to happen, what happens all the time at the beginning, which is fine, you land on the board, and because you don't expect the board to glide, you just stay there and the board slips.
Yeah.
Again, so if you look forward and you expect the board to glide, and that's also pretty subtle, but when you engage the foil, you have to expect the glide and then help the glide. So when you land, you're not gonna land like this, you're gonna land like this. We can already get in the water. Now, there are probably steps that we could do in between. For example, something that is coming to my mind right now is maybe put some water on the little mattress so that it's actually really slippery. Yeah, so it's either something like this. I've never tried it, so I wanna feel how it feels before I get you to do this. Either maybe it's like a cover, like what's it called? A nice and I'm still alive. That's actually good that you had more weight in front. So now you were nice and balanced in terms of left and right. You had a bit more weight in front, which is fine, because again, you're gonna have lift from the foil. So it's better to nosedive at the beginning than to fall backwards, both in terms of progression and also in terms of safety. So if when you land, you're kind of like this, better than being all scared at the back, because then you're just gonna fly the foil somewhere. And just for reference for the video, if instead of the reverse drop start, you are practicing the classic dock start, then you can do pretty much the same. So you start and you only step on the board statically. And then if you want to go a step further, if you want to simulate really what you're going to do on the water and how it's going to feel to do an actual dock start, then yeah, you want to make sure that the surface is kind of slippery, so you can put like, what's it called? Again, these
the onesie.
The onesie. Yeah. You can put a onesie on your bench, on your couch, whatever you're using, and you can. I'm not gonna do it now, but you can glide and then step on it. So exactly how you would in the water. So it's very, very accurate in terms of simulation. It's gonna help a lot when you're gonna get in the water. Now, just to try. Now, instead of looking at where your front foot should land, try and look at the volleyball net. Cool. This means that you know already pretty much, like, the movement is pretty much already ingrained in your brain. Yeah. Because then ideally, again, in the water, you're so used to the movement that you don't think about it and you just do it. So that's the only thing that you have to think about is what you couldn't practice on land, which is the glide. Do you feel ready to go in the water?
Yeah, why not?
Cool.
That's where the truth is, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna see what foil to use.
Yeah.
But anyways, doesn't really matter if it's not the super glidey foil or if it's not the high performance foil, because anyways, in this first session, we really want to get the glide. We don't want to pump, we don't want to do anything. So anything big, generous volume, generous area, not that generous span, big stab and long fuse is gonna help you because it's gonna be more stable and you're gonna have more room for mistakes in terms of feet placement, and weight positioning. Just a little side note, unfortunately we didn't really have a proper beginner pump foil set, so we pretty much used what we had, which was like a wing foil type of set, which was still fine, but of course you cannot expect to get the same glide and to really transfer that momentum into glide, because that foil is not really made to pump, is made to be pulled by a wing. But anyways, and that's that. It still did the job. And thank you very much to Windsor City for hosting this lesson. If you are if you're planning your wing foil vacations, 100% Larnaca, Windsor City, Cyprus. So now that we're on the dock, with this tiny fuselage and tiny board, so tiny mast and tiny board and massive fuselage, we're gonna practice throwing the board, okay? So throwing the board, it depends on the foil a lot, because if you have a glidey foil, you maybe wanna angle the board a little bit more towards the water, because otherwise it just stalls. With this foil, you can pretty much drop it flat and it's gonna glide. So all I want you to do now is you stay in the same position you were with your right foot in front and your weight in your front foot. You keep the board 20 centimeters, 25 centimeters above the water, sorry, the foil 25 centimeters above the water, and you just drop it. Again, it sits in your palms, and then you drop it, and when you drop it, you give a very, very gentle push forward. Ideally, you should get some glide.
So a little bit more.
So yeah, a little bit steeper and a little bit of a bigger push. Sits in your palms, slightly pointing down. A small push. Yeah. First off, get comfortable staying up there.
Yeah.
You gotta lean a little bit more forward. Don't squeeze the board. Let it sit in your palms. Okay. I wanted you to only throw the board now, but it was very good actually.
But yeah, straight away you go.
Yeah.
Because of
You jumped. My idea was to just throw the board now, but actually, even your throwing the board was actually pretty good. So if you feel already comfortable jumping, why not? Also because yeah, like we saw that making this board glide is not really that simple, and yeah, your throw was precise, and also the timing was pretty good. Normally you throw it and then you really just wait half a second and you get on it. So pretty much before the board touches the water, before the foil enters the water, you should be already off the dock, right? So yeah, I'm not gonna do it because I have the microphone, but you can just do it again, and I'm gonna tell you something. One thing that also you could have done a little bit better is your weight. So if you keep your weight all the way to the front with your chest on top of your front foot before you throw the board and before you get on the board, exactly as it was happening on land, you're gonna be simply more gentle when you're gonna land on the. Try and keep the board a little lower. Yeah. More weight on your front foot. Yeah. It wasn't that bad.
a little bit more.
Yeah, a little bit more towards the front. Just a longer step. Again, it comes with time because at the beginning you're kind of a bit scared, right? You're literally jumping on the void. Yeah. So it's just about getting comfortable so that you make a longer step and you have a better, wider stance when you land on the board. So when it comes to the normal dock start, I would suggest you always keep your hands on the board. That's why it was probably a little bit better to do some practice on land first. But ideally, you don't want to let go the board and then jump on it, even though that's what you usually normally do because that's how you feel like you should be doing. But in actual fact, what you should really do is to, first off, you should get comfortable holding the board in this position, okay? You should be precise with keeping the board flat, parallel to the dock, with the foil very close to the surface, okay? Once you are comfortable in this position, your back doesn't hurt and anything like that, then you could start and practice the run, okay? So I think you are goofy, right? So you just, I'm not squeezing the board too much. The board is pretty much sitting on my hands, right? You see? That's pretty much what you have to practice at the beginning. Yeah. No. You step and you move your hands from the edge to the pad, and you just keep gliding the board, and you control and you feel the lift of the foil. Okay? Your turn.
And you have to convince them that it's 20 kilos.
If you see the board diving, then it means that you should be keeping the nose a little higher.
Higher, okay.
Yeah, so that the foil doesn't go down. Yeah, don't be scared of keeping the board closer to you. We have an overhang, so we can. The only thing is then we have the
Problem here,
yeah,
yeah.
that's the problem. Yeah. The board is pointing a little bit out,
Yeah.
so as you step, it gets harder and harder to control the lift. The idea of this exercise is being able to feel a bit of lift, because then once it's gonna be time to actually do the dock start, you have to first get on the board with your arms first. So like you apply first weight with your arms, with your chest on top of the board, and then you step on it. But when you step on it, all your weight, you see the board is pointing up. The board should point this should be parallel to the dock. Yeah. You can even keep it closer to you, the board. And now if you're getting tired, don't worry. Better. And then the steps are kind of lateral steps. Okay. So my front foot is there. That's where my back foot is gonna go.
Same place,
Yeah, it's like a dance. I don't know. Right. Right. Don't squeeze it too much. Let it just sit on your palms. If it doesn't sit on your palms, then you just have to maybe move a little bit your hands around. Like now it's sitting on my palms. I'm not squeezing it or anything like that, and it is stable and flat, right? This way is easier to do the weights, to do the hand shifts. So, boom, boom, hand shift. Okay. It's gonna go down inevitably because we have quite a heavy board with, but it's fine. Okay. Try again.
Even this one is
This is quite okay. Imagine the ladder with this.
platform. Wish I had this one at home. Maybe I have to make one.
So that was great. Now, you just gotta do it multiple times so that you get comfortable and you can make a longer step and land with a better stance.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Try to relax and breathe, even if it's not super stable, even if it's kind of scary because you have like a meter of jump before getting like between you and the water. And another thing that could help a little bit is keeping your back a little bit straighter. I saw that you were a bit close with your chest. And the thing is that if you're close with your chest, then it's quite hard to be balanced and glide, right? Like if you think about it, like if you do like this, you're not very balanced. But if you are like this, you're nice and balanced on your feet, right? Even like a squat, when you squat, your back is kind of straight. So if your back is already straight on the dock, it's gonna help you when you land on the board. Think of making a longer step than you probably should. Always better to fall forward and nosedive than to fall backwards.
Okay.
Pretty much the same, but we're getting there. Yeah, I think that's and you probably also threw the board too far, so you kind of had to make a super long step, right?
Yeah.
Step. Usually it's like step or 2 steps, whatever. But with your foil, 1 step is enough. Step, hand switch.
And the back one first.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Jakobos. I'm 20 years old, and now we will see Gael try to dockstart from the DIY dock that he made a few months ago.
You keep the board. The board is sitting in your on your palm, right? The foil is very close to the surface. It's almost outside of the water. And what you're gonna do? Step, step, and then you step on the board and just glide with your hands on the pad. Okay? You gotta always keep your hands on the pad until you're nice, stable, with a good feet placement, and you're gliding. And then in the next steps, you can think about standing up and doing other things. But for now, all you wanna do is to get on the board and glide. Because you have the pumping movement because you are a great wing foiler, so you know how to pump already. The thing is that you gotta get on the board with some glide and speed so that you can actually use your pumping skills.
Let's see. Up.
And ideally, first off, you start from the very end of the dock so that you have more room. And then ideally, when you do the last step, so when you step actually on the board, you kind of go a little bit further. Yeah. But so until you're stepping on the board, on the dock, sorry, until you're running on the dock, the board is parallel to the dock. You just let go the board. The thing is that if you let go the board and then you jump on it, you land on the board and you don't have a mast height, you don't have speed, and you don't have the right angle to gain speed. So it's very hard to then pump. If you are experienced, you can recover it, but if you're not in the position of learning how to pump, right? That's why, like Jakob said, if you keep your hands on the board, then you get on the board with some glide, with some speed, and with the board in the right position. Because if you jump on the board, if you let the board go and you jump on it, then the board is gonna be pointing up with no speed and half mast already in the water. That's why you should really practice. That's why it's helpful to practice on land. You should really practice this kind of movement on land, right? Because if you do this on land over and over, then it's going to be easier and more familiar for you to transfer the same movements on the water. Yeah. Try and be a little bit more gentle when you throw the board.
So not throw so much, maybe just.
Yeah, less.
So getting too far,
less
like you said, and then I'm on the back. And
Exactly. You just like kind of kicked it too much with your backhand. So give a softer push.
Yeah.
And don't be scared of stepping forward. Remember that it's safer actually to step further forward. Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah, at least the feet placement wasn't that bad. A little bit.
Glides quite well when I kick.
Yeah, a little bit of a longer step, and now that your feet placement is almost dialed in, you have to, when you are on the dock, before you even jump, you already have to visualize yourself gliding. Because if you do that, then you're gonna expect the board to glide. And if you expect the board to glide, when you land on it, you just glide. But if you don't, you're just gonna land, you're just gonna stay there, and you don't expect the board to glide, so you don't go with the board, you just stay there and then the board slips. You are already gliding peacefully. Okay, so this time, a little bit better. The only thing is that you stepped on the board a tiny little bit too early.
Yeah.
So you jumped when you threw the board. In actual fact, should be you throw the board, and then you jump. With this timing. throw, jump, not throw, jump,
Yeah.
throw, jump. So you're still letting go the board. Focus on keeping your hands there. It's very hard if you've never practiced on land and you've never done it and you used to do it that way. It's very hard to like change this belief system. But yeah, like look here and remember to shift your hand on the pad when you run. And then one thing that could help is don't even think about getting your feet up. Just try and you run, and then I'm gonna show you. The thing is that when you do the hand switch, when you switch from edge to pad, you're like this. You're kind of you're kind of scared, right? You gotta be
I need to relax.
so comfortable that you can lean on the board and apply pressure on it. Okay?
The problem is change one
Yeah, it's not easy.
note.
Not bad. The board was in the right place. You had some glide. You just needed a longer step because your feet placement was a bit off.
I
Like
tried to look forward, and I think
that
I
helps.
missed my feet a bit.
Yeah. That helps with the glide, but you gotta be sharp with your feet placement to do that. Yeah.
I keep practicing on land.
Wait. I would suggest you to do what I did. So to glide with your hands on the board and maybe one knee on the board.
Only one minute.
Because if you do that, you're gonna feel the glide and you're gonna understand and teach to your brain that you have to keep those hands there. It's gonna be way more beneficial. If you can't do that, that's the reason why we do some land training, is to assess also your flexibility. Because maybe that's not the right start for you and you should go with something like that. But I think that you're being a wing foiler and everything, you should be good with this kind of dock start from the low platform. You just gotta learn to keep your hands there, and it's gonna be way easier. Okay, now the problem was that for some reasons, before throwing the board, you kind of lifted it. Maybe because you were already jumping, and that's another small problem. You just jumped a little bit too early, and then when you threw the board, you kind of lifted it. So it was a bit off.
It was a strange one, yeah.
But it's very good that usually people the first time trying this kind of start are really scared. You're not.
Maybe I should be.
No, because if you are, then you hold back, and you never really expect the glide. You never really glide. You never really land with a nice feet placement. So, what I often tell people is, imagine that you're just when you were doing it on land, it was so easy because you knew that you had a floor underneath your feet catching you. You should kind of imagine the same thing. Because at the end of the day, you actually do have a floor catching you, and that's the board, because you got the lift from the foil. So it's just a mental thing.
Yeah.
Pam, up. I gotta go.
Longer step, expect the glide, visualize yourself gliding. Again, your stance was pretty close. Your front foot was pretty much in the middle of the board. So you kind of were all at the back. As you could see, 2 hours can already set you on the right path to kickstart your pumpfoiling journey. However, it's not much. That is why I remind you that I'm going to be holding this 4-day clinic in Rome from the 6th until the 9th of June. If you're free and you're keen, you can simply send me a DM on Instagram or an email and I can explain you how it works. I can't wait for it.